Hey everyone, welcome to the Roughnecks Podcast. I'm your host, Cole Nixon, and I bring on guests just about every week who are viewed as leaders and motivators in the world of coaching, business, and life in general. Each episode will wrap up with Motivation Monday, where they will give their words of wisdom and advice to start your week. I do not have a guest this week. It is just going to be me, so I apologize a little bit in advance, but I want to start with saying thank you to all my listeners. You guys are turning a passion and a dream into a reality, so thank you for that. I also want to mention that Teddy has decided to step away from the podcast. He's in the big boy world now, and while I still have an average amount of free time on my hands, I'm going to continue. He may be back in the future, but for now it's just me, so let's get into this week's topic. The topic I'm going to talk about this week actually was inspired through multiple of my classes that I've taken at Ohio Wesleyan. More specifically, the business classes, but this goes beyond business. And if it's something that pops up multiple times in multiple different classes, you would think that it might be important. The topic that I chose this week is why. But what does this mean? Why do you do what you do? Are you happy with what you do? Do you enjoy going to work every morning? Or do you dread Monday morning? If the answer then is no, then you most likely don't know your why. Why do you wake up every morning? That is the question you should ask yourself. Figure out something that gets you up out of bed every morning. That could be your family, your friends, goals, literally anything. Maybe you get your ass out of bed every morning because you know you have to go to work to provide for your family. It can literally be as simple as that, and that's okay. Find your why for why you get out of bed every morning. The Simon Sinek video is where this whole why thing stems from. That's the thing that kept popping up in my classes, and if you haven't seen the video, please do yourself a favor. After you listen to this episode, you got to go online and search how great leaders inspire action. And I'll also put the link in the description. But it's an absolutely incredible video and has so much valuable information. He asks questions like, why were the Wright brothers the first ones to figure out flight? Why is Apple so innovative? Why is Martin Luther King Jr. that person that everyone looked up to and followed? Like, they were not the first ones, but they all have something in common. And Simon Sinek says it all. He says, they think, act, and communicate the exact same way, which just so happens to be different than the majority. There's a reason that they were those people, because they did things different. And that's where Simon Sinek comes up with a thing called what he calls the golden circle. Why, how, what? So you have the outside circle, the first circle, the circle that circles it all, and that is your what. So that's like what your company does. What do you do? Now we go in a little bit, and now we have the how. So you have the what, now how does that company do it? Most people have that figured out, but it's a little harder to understand. The what circle is the easiest part to figure out. That's where everybody they have a grasp on it. And then we go into the final circle, which is this little circle right in the middle, and it's your why. That's where a lot of businesses and people, that they're missing that extra piece. Why do you do what you do? What's your purpose? What's your cause? Why do you exist? Why do you even get out of bed every morning? And why should people even care? Most people think from the outside looking in. So they go from how to why, but a lot of times they leave out that why. They forget their why. But those leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. or Apple or the Wright brothers, they thought from the inside looking out. Like, they think from why to what. So Simon Sinek gives the example of Apple. It's easy for everybody to understand. He says that if Apple was like everyone else, then they would go something like this when they market to get you to buy a computer. They'd say, hey, we make great computers. There's your what. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. There's your how. Want to buy one? Notice how there isn't a why. Why do they do what they do? Apple is obviously a highly successful company, even though I myself am not an Apple computer guy, but I will always buy iPhones. But what does Apple do that makes them so different? Why are they the powerhouse? They figured out the why and thought from the outside, or the inside, looking out. That's why their marketing goes as such. We want to challenge the status quo by thinking differently. Right there, they started with their why. We challenge the status quo, having a beautifully designed simple to use, and user-friendly computer. We just happen to make great computers. Now let's take a step back for a minute. I want you to look at how you can expand this beyond business. Don't get me wrong, this is a very powerful business video used throughout the world. Hell, it's appeared in 3 of my classes at least, and I had to do a leadership interview for a class, and the guy I interviewed brought it up as well. So obviously there's some truth behind it. So let's think about it, of how this could apply to life. Normal people are going to make the mistake of thinking from the outside in. I don't think of my podcast as a business. I think it as something that I like to do. So if I thought from the outside in, I'm a podcaster who puts out episodes every morning, usually bringing on guests who are viewed as leaders and motivators in the world of business, coaching, and life in general. That doesn't give you a reason to listen to Roughneck's podcast at all. That's just a basic podcast description that many other people have. That doesn't set me apart from anyone else. So let's flip the process around. I want to inspire people and bring them valuable information while learning personally at the same time. I do this through talking to people who are viewed as leaders and motivators in the world of business, coaching, and life in general. It just so happens that I do that through a podcast. Simon Sinek says something that's, I think, very powerful, and he says, people don't buy, and when you think about this in the world of business, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This is why people are viewed as leaders. It's not what they are doing, it's why they are doing it. Think about that for a minute. Are you thinking from the outside in? Are you challenging yourself to be a leader and thinking from why to what? From the inside out. What is your why? So every week we have Motivation Monday, since our episodes are released on Monday morning. Now, this whole episode is pretty much almost a whole Motivation Monday, but I'm still going to go with it, and I'm gonna do Motivation Monday with 2 things to end this episode. The first thing is a challenge. I challenge you to find your why. A lot of us are upset at this or aren't happy with their lives, but we don't know why. You have to find your why in that too. Why are you unhappy? Find that why. Figure out why you exist. I don't want to know why other people think you exist. That's not the important part. Screw everyone else in this instance. So I challenge you, each and every one of you, to find your why. And I'm going to finish it with this quote. Don't look for motivation. Find your why. Then no excuse will come between you and your goals. Finding your reason why is the first step to finding success, and you can apply that to anything in life. And with that, that's a wrap on this quick episode for episode 11 of the Roughnecks podcast with your host, Cole Nixon. Be sure to tune in next week. I will be bringing on a former Purdue running back from the Cleveland, Ohio area. As always, I want to thank you for your support in pursuing my passion for podcasting. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode, which comes out at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on all listening platforms. Also, give us a follow on Instagram at Roughnecks Podcast, and you can email me at roughneckspodcast@gmail.com. We love the people who have helped improve this podcast, such as Podcast Name Here, Studio for our logo, and hope to see you next week. But for now, Roughnecks out.